Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board Explorer Live. I'm Richard Vobes. We're reading Two Englands by H.V. Morton, and we're on Chapter 3 today. Hello to Audrey Forbes. It's cold. It's a lovely day outside. It's so cold in my back room where the studio is. It's really daft. Outside, it's beautiful. I've been filming part 2 of my new little mini-series as part of my quest for England in search of Sussex, I've called it. Hello to lovely Julia and hello to Adrian. And just a reminder for those of you who are watching live and anybody who's watching the catch-up today, my very good friend Richard Suggett is doing his Veg Grower podcast live for 24 hours, pretty much when I stop doing this one. He starts at 5 o'clock this evening, which it's 4 o'clock now. It'll be 5 o'clock and he will be doing it. So he is going to be getting ready. We wish him lots of luck. Just a reminder, it's on Facebook if you want to look out for it, and it's called the Veg Grower Podcast on Facebook, and he will be doing 24 hours of live. Golly. Right. Hello to Judith. Hello also to Jeff Kellison. Lovely to see you there. We will persevere. In this chapter, he says, I arrive in Coventry, watch the feast of tea time, see a shop that sells ARP, climb the Bell Harry Tower and construct the murder of Thomas à Becket. It's interesting. It's Thomas Becket, but people put the affected A in there for reasons that I don't know why. Thomas à Becket. I visit a leper settlement and I go to Walmer Castle, where I am shown the Wellington room and continue my journey through the Hurst and Den of the country of Kent. So, all good. Linda Kane, hello to you. Larry Hazelwood, hello to you, Larry. Steve G, hello to you. Thank you for coming along. It's been a dash again. Now that I'm doing this filming in the mornings to try and get just 10 minutes of reasonable quality video for this In Search of Sussex mini-series, you get out there and then race back home and edit the stuff and try and make sure, and it's just uploading now. I have managed to get episode 3 done, and then it's straight into here to do the reading. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to pan out in the future because I can't work at this pace and then do the live show tonight. But anyway, that's I don't know whether I can just carry on with the reading. It'll be the first thing that has to go, unfortunately, but I am enjoying reading it, and I'm slowly getting better at it. Anyway, let's have a slurp. Good old Walmer Castle. Yes, I thought it was just down the road from you, Judith, actually. I'd been there once at a corporate gig, and I think, if I remember, I was juggling fire or knives or something as people had booked out the main function room there. Anyway, let's crack on. So, where are we? He's on his way to Canterbury, I think that was the thing. It was delightful to walk about Canterbury in the evening, with the sun still lighting the cathedral towers and the streets warm with life and bustle. The old houses and narrow lanes were provided by an air of ecclesiastical peace, plenty and privilege. Everyone I spoke to, the girl at the hotel, the boots and the shopkeepers, were distinguished by the smiling ability that comes so naturally to those who were always in brief contact with strangers. It's funny, isn't it? That's quite true. It's quite true. We do smile briefly at strangers, but do we smile at our friends? Old streets like Mercury Lane cannot have changed much since the Middle Ages, either in appearance or in their function. They exist to sell cheap souvenirs, which prove that the purchaser has been to I need to say Glastonbury then because of Glastonbury Gabriel. They've been to Canterbury. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, these places that flog things just to prove you've actually been there. These shops once sold leaden medallions of the head of St. Thomas. Now they sell postcards and ashtrays emblazoned with the city arms. Chesterton might have written a good story about a bus load of trippers from Ramsgate who came to Canterbury, only to find themselves involved in a miracle. Perhaps T.F. Powys could do it even better. And I have the suspicion that the average band of Canterbury pilgrims were much the same a few centuries ago as those today who wander vaguely about the city on a day trip. Could you replace their curiosity with faith? Or at least hope? I think you would have a similar crowd of people. Oh, sorry. Could you replace their curiosity with faith, or at least hope? I think you would have a similar crowd of people. Larry says, I just suddenly saw that, sorry, as I looked up. That's very decent of you. I enjoy all your videos. The best narrator I ever watched. Oh, what a star. That's so nice. Thank you. 24-hour Vobathon. Oh, my God. Ben. Reeve. No, you'd see the wrong side of the Vobe. You'd see a terrible side. You said Coventry earlier. It threw me. Did I say Coventry? Yeah. I know. I am actually quite crap at all this reading stuff. Words come out of my mouth. I don't hear them, and it's only you guys who go, wait, what did you just say? And it's not that I do it deliberately, you understand. There was nothing wrong with pilgrimage except the pilgrim. In the East today, you can still see medieval pilgrimage in being, and I've sometimes amused myself by picking out the characters of the Canterbury tales from the motley throng that fills Jerusalem in Passion Week. Still, when it's all said and done, maybe one poor simple-headed creature with tears coursing down his cheeks experiencing the bliss that neither wealth nor a science degree can give cancels out all the hard bargainers with God. And no doubt it was the same in Canterbury, not Coventry. In every pilgrimage there must have been at least one who redeemed the rest. A bell began to ring. Beckett would have called that moment Vespers, a lovely word. The Dean and Chapel would call it evensong, not quite so lovely as the other, but to the general population it was obviously tea time. Were I a tea lover, I would have had a wonderful time in Canterbury, because like most cathedral cities, Canterbury takes its tea seriously. It is rich in examples of that English institution, the tea shop. But alas, I'm not a great tea man. I think tea is best drunk early in the morning or in the middle of the night. I also think it extremely odd that we should call an orgy, oh my God, here comes a word, an orgy of farinaceous solids by the simple name of a harmless liquid. I would love to know what farinaceous means. Farinaceous, is it? Farinaceous, farinaceous. What does that mean? Farinaceous solids. Oh gosh. I think I've got to go to the small boys' room to get rid of some farinaceous solids. Can't possibly mean that, can it? Anyway, we may as well call breakfast coffee. Cheers. I've got coffee. I stood at the window of those shops gazing over a rampart of cakes to the charming scene beyond, a perfect picture of an English social custom. You'll never see anything quite like a Canterbury tea shop anywhere else on earth. It's extraordinary to think what a mighty habit we have built around that dried leaf from the other side of the world, and never once for a matter of 3 centuries have the supplies of it failed us. At the same time, I've held the belief for years that the consumption, except in Scotland, where it is the last meal of the day, by middle-aged and elderly people of large quantities of bread and butter, tea cake, crumpet, muffin, jam, honey and cake is a habit that originated in the nursery, for all English nurses have a passion for colossal and fantastic teas. The young, gazing at them in envious wonderment, and denied that repletion which their nurses reserve for themselves, develop the vice in later life and try to justify themselves by calling it simply tea. It was with an almost Freudian satisfaction that I watched a well-fed elderly parson peep genteelly under the muffin lid and select a warm and buttered segment, which he carried to his mouth with juvenile enjoyment, afterwards quickly licking the butter from his fingers like a naughty boy. No doubt he was getting his own back on the nurse. Yes, it's true, isn't it? Farinaceous, containing starch. Oh, right, in carbohydrates. What farinaceous? Is that how did I pronounce that right, by the way? Farinaceous. It's a great word. I've got the kettle on, says Graham Graham Roffey, I beg your pardon. And a bit of a Swiss roll. Oh, lovely. Tea and biscuits, just like me now. Oh, do you know, I went to have a look. I'm so famished. I did have some soup and a roll at lunchtime. And I've got a cup of coffee now, and I thought, I'm a bit famished from all my exploits today. And I went to have a look to see if there was anything in the biscuit thing, and nothing. Not a sausage. Though quite why you would put a sausage in the biscuit tin, I do not know. Anyway, where are we? Yes, the tea shop, as we know it today, is a fairly recent development. It is the feminine counterpart of the inn. Refinement is its keynote, and it has also inherited a lot from the arts and crafts period. That's because once upon a time, when a lady in a chintz overall decided to go into business, it was a toss-up whether she opened a tea shop or bought a hand loom and some herbally dyed wool. There's a sweeping statement, if ever you heard one. And the number of ladies who do pervade the tea shops with a tremendous ladylike air of bravery and resignation is legion. Another of my theories is that the first generation of such ladies, long ago when it was daring and emancipated to have a tea shop, plunged into the tea world in order to forget an unhappy love affair, much as men of the same period are believed to have worked off their sorrow upon wild animals in India and Africa. Never heard that before. And even today, if you wish to find a lady whose heart is elsewhere, you only have to look for the nearest collection of homemade cakes, jams, lemon curd and ginger nuts, and there you will see, gazing into the distance, the wistful features of Sister Alice. I've always understood that neither Swinburne nor Burne-Jones were much addicted to tea or crumpets. Nevertheless, they have, in some strange way, bequeathed to the tea shop their drooping, sad Madonnas. Having watched the ceremony of tea, I wandered idly through the streets, coming at last to the most bizarre shop window I have ever seen. It was full of rattles, handbells, whistles, electric torches and gas masks. The shop called itself the ARP Information Bureau. Had it not been closed, I should have gone inside to seek an answer to the question everyone is asking, although is only too clear that the organisers of this exhibition had no doubt of the answer. What is that? What is the question? The central feature of the window was a chart setting forth the various signals to be used in air raids. Upon the signal Action Warning, people were to take cover. Upon the signal Raiders Passed, they were to emerge. The gas alarm would be signalled by rattles and the all clear by handbells. No one seemed interested in this window, and I was its only student. I thought it was a grim contrast to the crowded happy tea shops of Canterbury, an ogre of a shop, something too grotesque to be comic, too improbable to be true. At the same time, the rattles and handbells, instead of appearing the most modern of all Windows display, instead of appearing the most modern of all Windows display, had a queer air of the archaic, as if they were a collection of bygones in a museum. I found it difficult to imagine men running through the lovely streets of Canterbury, waving rattles or ringing bells. Surely Canterbury would never know the sound of war. Surely Canterbury would never know the sound of war. Can you imagine that? I don't think we had any gas attacks, did we? But you can imagine them coming out going with the rattles, ding, ding, ding. With that, I guess they must have done. Julia Hart is having milk and a cherry Bakewell tart. Oh, lovely. Turbo Stream says, going to a tea shop after lockdown and ask for a farinaceous food. Could I have, do you have anything farinaceous in your on your counters? I'd like something farinaceous with my cuppa, if that's all right. Sorry, because it's Bromley, isn't it? It's Birmingham. Excuse me, have you got anything farinaceous for me? I wouldn't mind a bit of farinaceous food, actually. It'd be nice there to go with me cup of tea. Kip of tea. Kip of tea. Oh, dear. Tea and biscuits. Oh, yes, there we go. Not had a Swiss roll for years. Tea and cucumber sandwiches. Oh, everyone's posh, yes. I have Vimto, says Term. Here, I've only got a bit of Vimto. That's all I got. Just a bit of Vimto. I was going to put it on the bicycle. It's, I've oiled it the other day, so it's all right. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm in a funny old mood. Right, where are we? I've lost... Oh, yeah, we're down here. As I was turning away... I'm enjoying today's reading, by the way. I always enjoy it, but some days, like enjoying it a bit more. As I was turning away, a man came up and looked at the window. Do you think we shall ever need these? I asked him, nodding towards the grisly display. He was a curious... spectacled. What's the difference between a spectacled person and bespectacled? Is it one of those words that's a bit like flammable and inflammable, which basically means exactly the same? It's just, for some reason, the both words... the one word has two letters more than the other. Is it bespectacled or spectacled? I would love to know, anybody good with English, because I often see these words. Anyway, he was a curious, spectacled little man. I love that expression. He was a spectacled little man. Already you've kind of got this small little balding dumpy bloke with a little cardigan waistcoat on or something, haven't you? That's how I picture him. Anyway, he was a curious, spectacled little man who peered at me carefully before he replied. Peered above his little... what are they called? Those pince-nez, presne, or whatever they are. Well, I don't really know, he said, but I suppose it's better to be on the safe side. We're very keen on ARP in Canterbury. As you see, it's not easy to get people interested, I wonder, what does ARP... It's Air Raid Warning Protection, is it? ARP, or Air Raid Warning Person. An ARP, I thought, was an Air Raid Warning Personal. It's a bit like PPE that everyone's talking about now. Nothing changes, does it? PPE, ARP. I'm sure there's a song in that. May I ask if you're connected with ARP? I asked. He was apologetic about this, and he thought I might laugh at him. Well, if you really want to know, he said, I am an air raid warden. He peered up anxiously, and when I did not smile, he went on. The trouble is people don't think we're serious. They think this war is a scare. It's just newspaper talk and that everything is going to come out all right. But you bet they'll be you bet they'll be interested as soon as something happens. He looked round into the night, his spectacles gleaming as if he'd heard already the whine of civilization's doom, and he went off with nothing to indicate that he belonged to a new order of knighthood, the Knight of the Twirling Rattle. The Knight of the Twirling Rattle. Oh, I love it. Presnes, pinch nose. Is that what it is? Pinch nose. Oh, thank you, Ben. Hey, Richard. Air Raid precaution. Oh, Warden. Thank you very much, Ernie. Good to see you out there. This is the word of the week. Oh, yes, the farinaceous. Arbosiniate. Arbosiniate. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. If it were baked beans, oh yes, it would be fartinaceous. Fartinaceous, yes. Baked beans, fartinaceous. Right, enough of this silliness. Please stop smiling, everybody. I stayed at the Royal Fountain because it looked quiet. And Canterbury is one of the noisiest cities in England. Motor bicycles, cars and lorries whine, explode and change gear in the high street all night through, so that sleep is an impossibility. It's quite good to remember that those old lorries particularly, and some of those old cars changing gear, you know, those people, they did grind their gears. I mean, we don't really hear it so much now. Occasionally you do, but so rare. But where's the bloody... There it is. Spectacles. Wearing spectacles. Spectacled is synonym for bespectacle, so it means the same. Linda Kane, if anyone was going to come up with the answer, I knew it was going to be you. Yes, so anyway, changing gears in the high street. This I know, having stayed in the front room there years ago, when I swore that I would rather walk about the streets all night than do so again. At the fountain, they are proud of the legend that the knights who slew Thomas à Becket called there for a drink before they went to the cathedral. I suggest they consumed several drinks, for contemporary accounts of the murder clearly describe a drunken brawl. You could hardly believe that the hotel is so old, because Georgian and Victorian plaster covers the medieval structure. But it is worth to glance at the cellars, where you can see the ancient foundations, as I did, in company with the boots. I love that. That's not an expression I've come across before, although I think in one of the previous books, it may have been J.B. Priestley's one, where he's referred to somebody as the boots. I would like to know what that profession is, the boots. Emerging from the cellar, the boots took me upstairs into a long room with a piano in it, known as the Farmers' Club Room. You heard of General Picton, sir? Well, you'd be interested in this room. I don't know why I give everyone slightly, down there. I just do. I can't help it. Anyway, and then he told me that on the 11th of June, 1815, General Picton, with his aide-de-camp, Captain Tyler, arrived in Canterbury on their way to join Wellington in the Low Country. Picton had been Wellington's right hand in the Peninsular War, and as soon as Napoleon escaped from Elba, the Duke asked him to leave his retirement and go. Yes, the Duke asked him to leave his retirement and go and serve under him. The citizens of Canterbury, aware of the great events on the continent and of the importance of their visitor, entertained the general to dinner in the long room which is now the Farmers' Club Room. In the morning, Picton departed, arriving 2 days later at Brussels. Wellington gave him command of the 5th Division and the reserve, and on the following morning at daybreak on the 16th of June, Picton and Wellington left Brussels together. All that day, Picton was in action with the French at Canterbury. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's French. His troops had no sooner formed square to repulse the enemy infantry than the French lancers charged them, greatly superior in numbers to the British cavalry. But Picton, despising the enemy's superiority, put himself at the head of the cavalry and gave the order to charge. Charge! He drove back the French, inflicting great losses on them, and his troops lay down that night to sleep among the dead and wounded upon the field of victory. But during the charge, Picton had been wounded by a ball that broke his ribs. Determined to lead his division, he told no one but his servant, who helped to bandage him up. On the following morning, the 17th, Picton was obliged. I kept almost reading it as Pickin. Remember the? Sorry, I've broken the mood, the thing. But Pitkin, Norman Wisdom, isn't it? Pitkin. All right, Pitkin. Yes, Mr. Grimsdale. I want you to go and charge those lancers over there, Pitkin. What? Charge the lancers? What? Oh, what, on my own? On my own? I would have charged the lancers on my own? Mr. Grimsdale, they've got long poles and everything. Oh, I can just imagine a Norman Wisdom film. Anyway, sorry about that. On the following morning, on the 17th, Picton was obliged to fall back upon the plains of Waterloo, where that night the Allied armies rested on their arms. The next day, Picton's wounds were more serious. Still, he kept it secret. Again, he fought a fierce and violent action with superior French foes, and again he placed himself at the head of the cavalry, and again, drawing his sword, he cried, "Charge! Hurrah! Hurrah!" But as his brigade galloped into action, a cannonball hit him on the forehead, and he fell back dead. Captain Tyler placed his chief's body beneath a tree, and when the battle was over, he went back and found it. Mr. Grimsdale, he's lost his head. He's just lost his head. As the stagecoaches were galloping through England, giving the glorious news of Waterloo, the body of Picton was landed at Deal. It rested the first night at Canterbury in the room in the Fountain, where a fortnight previously the brave soldier had been entertained by the city. Amazing. How about that? Thomas Becket, yes, here we go. Thomas Becket, also known as St. Thomas of Canterbury, Thomas of London, and later Thomas à Becket, was Archbishop of Canterbury from 1162 until his murder in 1170. So not a modern thing. Oh, it's not a modern thing. So I wonder when the a bit was appropriated, or stuck on or stuck in the middle. It's not stuck on, is it? Stuck in the middle. No synchro mesh on old gearboxes. You need to double declutch. Double declutch sounds French now, doesn't it? Double declutch. I got a double declutch. Is that what it was? Synchro mesh. You have to double declutch, and somebody else says double declutch. Not me, Google. I remember the ARP in... Oh, yes, Graham Ruff, the ARP. All right, Napoleon. All right, Napoleon. Wasn't it... what was it? Bill Pertwee, wasn't it, who played... whatever his name was. What was his name? The warden's name in Dad's Army. All right, Napoleon. The verger won't like this. The verger won't like it. He's getting a bit hysterical, I think. Lack of sleep and too much editing. Yes, I predict it'll end in tears. It'll end in tears. Always ends in tears. Anyway, after dinner, I watched the twilight come upon Canterbury, and I saw the towers grow black against the sky that promised more sunlight tomorrow. Thrushes were singing in the Cathedral close, and one by one a few windows were lit, revealing books and panelling before the curtains were drawn. I paid my respects to the Dean, who is known to the newspaper readers as Red Dean because of his interests in Russia. Actually, he is Pink and White Dean, a man with a healthy, fresh complexion and two side bushes of snowy hair. He received me in his superb panelled dining room, a room of most elegant and splendid proportions, and we went to his library, another equally fine Georgian room, where we talked of Russia, about which I knew little, and about the chances of war, about which I knew even less. The Dean, however, thought that only by a miracle could we escape it. Talking of the cathedral, he told me, and this I never knew before, that in, I think, 1115, tapestries of silk and wool depicting the scenes in the lives of Christ and the Virgin were hung around the choir. They were taken down by the Cromwellians and sold to the Cathedral of Aix-en-Provence, where they hang to this day. How nice. Oh, yes, Hodges. That's right, Hodges. MP Hodges to you. Yes. That's right. All right, Hodges. Now, look here, Captain Mainwaring. All right, Napoleon. All right, Napoleon. It was so well written, that series. They don't like it, Upham. Oh, dear. How are we doing on the time front? 4:30. Oh, marvellous. Right. The Canterbury Pilgrims gave a verb to the English language and a name to the English flower. The name Canterbury Bell was given 500 years ago to one of our most charming wild flowers because it was thought to resemble in shape the little bells which the pilgrims tied to the brides of their horses. Not the brides, the bridles of their horses. Gerard, who wrote his Herbal in 1597, complained that it was not right to give the name of certain bell flowers that grew around London because the true Canterbury bell was a native of Kent and was to be found in great profusion near Canterbury. This habit has grown since Gerald's time, and if you open any seedsman catalogue today, you will find that all of the cultivated flowers of the genus Campanella are called Canterbury bells, some of them huge exotic flowers that bear only a family resemblance to a real bell. We're going to have to get in touch with Richard Suggett and ask him if he knows where Canterbury Bell originates from and what the Latin name is. Campanella. Aye, it sounds Italian. Have you got your campanella? Yes, I got my campanella. Bing bong, bing bong. I thought campanella was the business of collecting stamps, but I may be wrong. That's campanology, isn't it? No, wait a minute. Whatever. Don't tell him, Pike. Yes, don't tell. We're all doomed, Captain Mainwaring. We're all doomed. What a great assembled cast there was. Don't tell him, Pike. I used to love John the Measurer, but he's so difficult to do because he's so unassuming. He's so unassuming. Well, Wilson? Well, I can't do him. I wish I could. Anyway. The verb to canter is, of course, a contraction of a Canterbury gallop, which was the easy hand gallop into which the pilgrims urged their horses, possibly when they came to level stretches of the South Downs. It has also been claimed that the word cant, meaning religious jargon, is derived from Canterbury, but I am not at all sure of this. But the phrase to tell a Canterbury or lie was one used by the Puritans, and though it has long since fallen out of use in this country, it was carried across the Atlantic by the Pilgrim Fathers and may still be heard in the United States. Anyone in the United States heard of to tell a Canterbury, or as we might say, to tell a porky? A porky pie. I wonder where it came from, to tell a porky pie. Oh, porky pie lie. Of course it is. Cockney rhyming slang. Fool. Campanella. Have I Linda Kane, Campanella. Campanella. Is that, have I pronounced that correctly? It's also worth mentioning twice. It's so good, it's... Yes, don't panic. Don't panic, Mr. Mainwaring. Don't panic. Oh, will you calm down? Wilson. Soon after the cathedral was open in the morning, I went there and made the acquaintance of Mr. Wood, the vesterer. I found him putting away the embroidered copes which had been used at that morning's service. He had the keys of the safes with him, so I asked him if I might see some of the treasures of Canterbury Cathedral. He's got an audacity, this bloke, hasn't he? He's certainly got audacity. He goes, he asks little bespectacled bald men whether they're going to use these rattles in the war, and everywhere he goes, he asks them and says, "Oh, is there any chance you could just open up the safe and show me all the valuables?" "Oh, yeah, no problem, mate. Help yourself. I'll be back. I'll go and make myself a cup of tea and some muffins." Did we fight Campanula? Well, I pronounce it Campanula. Campanula. Uh, not Campanella. Well, how are you pronouncing... Linda Kane, how are you pronouncing it? I can see Campanula. Oh, Campanula. Is it Campanula? It's all a bit... Oh, no. Stop mucking about. Suggett wouldn't recognise Campanella. Oh, no. No. He wouldn't recognise that, would he? So silly. You're mucking about. Did we find out what the boots were? Did anyone come back with me on the boots? On the what we... Where's the mouse? Come here, you sodding mouse. Did anyone find out? I'm just having a quick look. The boots. We're back to the Cherry Blackwell. I've gone back up there. Oh, the boots. Boot boy. Oh, the boot boy. Very good. Very good. The boots. The boot boy. Camping Hugh. Camping Hugh? Busy bee. Anyway. Where are we? Thank you for all that. Keep up the good work. This is like, do you know that program? What's that program? It's like where they've got somebody who's doing all the nattering, and then behind them there's people with dictionaries and things looking up, and they're going, oh, you know, that's not how it is. Actually, according to the Oxford English Dictionary on page 7942, in paragraph 92,871, it says that it should be pronounced Campanella. But that's he's an ugly fella, Campanella. Anyway, he's asked him if he might see the cathedral's treasures. Right. The most beautiful object he showed me was a thin hand-beaten chalice of silver gilt, which was discovered in the grave of a man who was buried in the year 1205. The man was Hubert Walter, Archbishop of Canterbury, in the time of Richard Coeur de Lion, I assume that is. When his grave was opened in 1892, those who were present at the time looked in awe as they saw for 1 second, before the air caused his body to fall into dust, the Archbishop vested, with his crozier beside him, just as he had been buried by the monks of Canterbury 687 years previously. Do you believe that? I don't know. Is it possible that a body can stay, in some puffed up motion, and then as the air went out, do you believe that? Or do you just think that is a little romantic fiction, that they thought they saw that? Heart of the lion, says the lovely Julia. I'm a Leo, by the way. I have the heart of a lion. I have the manners of an ox, but I do have the heart of a lion. Oh, dear. It is believed that Hubert Walter took the chalice with him to the Holy Land when he met with Richard on the Third Crusade. If so, it was used as mass long ago among the palm trees of Acre. I'm sure it's not pronounced Acre. It does not often fall into anyone's man to hold a relic such as this. There is not a place to which this chalice travelled in Palestine that I do not know. I have wandered through the ruins of Acre, Ashkelon, Tyre, and Sidon. These don't sound very foreign to me. Ashkelon, I'm sure that's not right, Tyre, and Sidon, watching the Mediterranean rollers come swinging in from the sea to break into foam against the piles of masonry that were fortresses in the days when Hubert Walter said mass with the English army. He was the outstanding man of his time and the strong man of England. He was a good man, and like many early churchmen, stood between the people and the tyranny of the king and noble. It was said of him that he was so bountiful in providing for the poor and the wayfarer that his income seemed common property. It was Hugh Walter who, when Richard foolishly got himself into prison on the continent, went round England with the hat and raised a fabulous ransom in those days of £100,000. I've always felt that he might have spent it to a better purpose, for Richard, our dear hero, could not speak English, knew nothing of England, and, out of a reign of 10 years, spent only 9 months in this country. Damn that Richard the Lionheart! Damn him! Walter ruled England when the king was away, Among his constitutional innovations was the appointment of coroners. Few JPs know perhaps that they owe their office to him, for he appointed knights whose duty it was to enforce an oath to keep the peace, and such knights developed into our justices of the peace. When Richard died, Hubert Walter crowned John. He was the only person in England who could stand up to this king, and when he died, John remarked, "Now, for the first time, I am truly King of England." That's John, not Richard the Lionheart. Private Godfrey. Oh, yes. Please, may I be excused? Yes, very well, Godfrey. Thanks, only it's my bad. Yes, off you go. Thank you so much. Campanula. Ah, see, Campanula. It's a Campanula. He was well picked. Yes, Nigel. Thanks, Audrey. What have we got here? Richard the First, Julius. Yes, Richard the First. Richard the First. So I suppose I could be Richard the Fourth. Maybe if I had royal blood. Aye, Richard the Fourth. Richard the Fourth. It's got a nice kind of ring to it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Richard the Fourth. Richard the Fourth, go forth. And multiply. Not that I was ever good at maths. Anyway, where is it? Oh, yes, I read that bit. 9 months in his country. Walter... Oh, no, yes, we got to King John. Now, for the first time, I am truly King of England. Yes, indeed. Such was the great man whose chalice, after lying for 687 years in the darkness of the tomb, is sometimes used in the Canterbury Cathedral today. There are more ornate and more costly chalices in the world, but not one, I think, of greater interest. Mr. Wood offered to show me round the cathedral. We ascended spiral staircases to the Triforum, then up again to the dark passages above the nave and the transepts. It was like walking under the timbers of an old ship, dark and dusty, and with only the occasional handrail to guide one over the narrow planks which stretched across the vaulting. This is the exquisite roof which visitors admire from the floor of the church, but from this position it looks like a crop of enormous stone mushrooms growing in the darkness. Perhaps few of those who admire the glory of Canterbury or any other cathedral know that between vaulting and the roofing is this vast V-shaped no-man's land, where the wind whistles through slit windows, where pigeons nest, and where bats hang from the rafters cut from oaks, which were probably giants at the time of the Norman conquest. There is no beauty in this dim and unvisited region, but we explored it eagerly, discussing the marvels of thrust and counter-thrust, and admiring the workmen who made this stupendous church centuries ago. We ascended the steps of the central tower, known as the Bell Harry Tower, but before we had gone very far, Mr. Wood pointed out what must be one of the few medieval cranes in existence. It is a gigantic wheel the size of a mill wheel, and it was used by the masons of the Middle Ages to lift heavy stones from ground level to the summit of towers. It was worked by manpower. Several workmen stationed inside the wheel would walk as if on a treadmill, which would cause the wheel to revolve and wind up a rope to which stones were attached. It is still in perfect order, although I don't suppose it's been used for 5 centuries. Standing in it, I discovered that the balance is so delicate that when I placed one foot only a few inches in advance of the other, the huge wheel began to revolve. We climbed still higher, much higher, and came out on the summit of Bell Harry Tower, where the stone, now in process of restoration, is eaten away by the wind and rain. Below us lay Canterbury in the calmness of the spring morning. The trees so far below hardly moved in the breeze, though a sharp wind was blowing across the tower. Looking down, the huge cruciform building is like a giant aeroplane, the transepts its wings, and the body of the church its fuselage. The bells, dismantled during the reconstructions, lay mouths up, the heavy clappers resting inside the rim, where a spot of bright bronze marked the striking point. I said how costly it must be the task of keeping a cathedral in repair. Yes, said Mr. Wood, but now and again the cathedral has a bit of good fortune. I asked him to explain this, and he smilingly told me his story. This story. A roughly dressed man was recently in the habit of haunting the cathedral, wearing a pair of old trousers and a shirt which opened at the neck to reveal a hairy chest. He had developed to a high degree the habit of singing loudly and out of tune. His voice was so loud and inaccurate that he began to affect the choir, which, to the consternation of the dean and chapter, also began to sing out of tune. The visitor who became a daily anxiety was tactfully... Wait a minute, I thought he said he was a ghost. Oh, recently in habit of haunting... Oh, a dressed man, not as in a ghost haunting. Sorry, I got that confused. I thought he was like a spectre. He's just an ordinary visitor who was haunting, as in, turning up regularly. The visitor who became a daily anxiety was tactfully asked to sit farther away from the choir, which annoyed him considerably. Nevertheless, he consented to do so. Then, one day, he didn't appear, and in a little while they heard that he was dead. When his will was proved, the cathedral received £6,000 and the choristers' school £5,000. And it's with the £6,000 that we're now doing this, ended Mr. Wood, indicating the restoration of Bell Harry Tower. If there is any moral in this, it is treat every man in old flannelled trousers with a hairy chest as if they were a wandering god. We descended those exhausting steps to the ground and looked at the cathedral from the outside. Mr. Wood pointed out the Archbishop of Canterbury's palace is joined to the cathedral by the great cloister, and although it is a modern building, it stands on the ground occupied by the palace of the early primates. It was from that palace that Thomas à Becket took sanctuary in the cathedral on the night of his murder, Mr. Wood said. And there are 3 stairs left in the palace on which he must have walked that night. The Archbishop was away at Lambeth, but we were invited to step into the palace. I had no idea that the Archbishop of Canterbury lived in such a modest house. The word palace is purely a formal title, for many a penurious vicar. What does penurious mean? It must mean penury, is it? Penury, it must be derived from penury or not having very much or something. Penurious vicar would be graceful for so small a vicarage. On the upper floor we found a fragmentary remains of the old stone staircase, with 3 of the original treads remaining. It was the same kind of narrow stone tube in which we had spent so much time that morning when we climbed into the roof. In this house it is clearly seen how, when the murderers had armed and were ready to do their work... it was in this house it is clearly seen how, when the murderers had armed and were ready to do their work, Becket left his building unseen by them, using a small private door that had once opened into the cloisters. And now, I said to Mr. Wood, let us go to the cathedral and try and imagine exactly what happened on the night of December the 29th in the year 1170. You can't leave him there, Mr. Derrick. Boom, boom. I'm going to have to leave him there, Mr. Derrick. We will pick up the murder of Thomas Becket on 1170, on whenever it was, the 5th of June, 1872. I can't remember. Just read it, but I can't remember. You see, every time I'm so busy trying to read it, I can't remember the facts. And that's not even the page. There it is. The 29th, December the 29th, in the year of 1170, we will reenact it. The horrific stabbing, or whatever it was, a sword to the gut, or whatever. Yes. So, right. Let's just have a quick look at the comments before we go. Don't take. Just remind you, don't take the teeth of the lion. Oh, yeah, wasn't. What do you mean? Don't take the teeth of the lion. Certainly not Richard III. No. Oh, the Richard III. Manpower. That's a bit un-PC, is it? Oh, manpower. Got a car park handy then, Richard? Oh, what, to be buried in? Yes, that's true. I want to be buried in a car. All famous Richards find their way into a car park. A bit of non-binary gender-specific wheel. Phew, PC is hard work. There we go. Man United or Man City. Oh, don't go down that road. Not touching that one. No, exactly. Not everyone likes. Well, I like a bit of rugby. So do I, but it makes my knees sore. Hard up. Penury. Yes, hard up. So penurious. It's a lovely word. How can one get these words into daily conversation? That's what I like to do. Linda Kane says, "Oh, it's a cliffhanger. It's a cliffhanger." Yes. Nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Thanks for the lovely reading today, says Mike Stephen. Thank you very much. Poor Audrey. Yes, but not poor reading, but poor penury. Penurious. It's one of those words you can slur quite happily on. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Very exciting. I saw 2 Englands. It was good. I think the funniest bit was the ARP shop with the rattles, but it was exciting to go up on the roof on the Bell Henry Tower. That's very nice. Anyway, I will be back, but just to give you a heads up again, Richard Suggett, for those of you watching live, Richard Suggett will commence his 24 hours on Facebook on the Veg Grower podcast page, 24 hours live broadcasting. My mate, Richard Suggett, no doubt he will be desperate for people to ring in. So go and have a look at him, and then go and have a cup of tea and what have you. Then go back at about, I don't know, 9:30 when I finish the Vogue show, and give him another bit of a oomph, and then wake up in the night at about 2:30 and see if they are still broadcasting. Dear oh dear, all good fun. Diana Patterson, having only pennies. Oh, is that where the pen bit comes from? Penurious. I've got to find out how you properly pronounce it, because I'm murdering it now, as in penury. I suppose penurious. Anyway, nice to see you. Thanks so much. I will catch up with you once again very soon. Take care, look after yourselves, and have fun.